That is the truth.
All right.
You know, we have become a do-it-yourself country. We are used to that already. So if the government is not doing anything, I don't think anybody will be disappointed. We get light for ourselves, we get water for ourselves, the roads we repair ourselves, everything. So if anybody is not doing anything, we won't, at the end of the day, we are used to it. So what is the big thing? Some of us are not jackpot type. So we have made up our mind to remain here and face it. So I won't be disappointed anyway.
All right. We'll come to expectations and how we can handle expectations from administration thereafter. But I would want us to look into the reaction of one of the issues that the new president mentioned yesterday, which was, of course, you also mentioned that during the campaign that he said he would go ahead in removing the fuel subsidy, of which the former president had already removed from the 2023 budget, which will commence in June 2023. And prior or after the speech of the new president yesterday, talking about the fuel subsidy, he said that they commend the decision of the outgoing administration in phasing out the petrol subsidy regime, which has increasingly favored the rich more than the poor. And subsidy can no longer justify its ever-increasing cost in the wake of drying resources, and then we shall instead rechannel the funds into better investment in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and jobs that will materially improve the lives of millions. And since when the new president made that statement on fuel subsidy, which of course is not just one of those sectors that I mentioned, there were reports or evidences that different fueling stations are already shutting their gates against motorists, and we are having fuel scarcity. Even in Abeokuta now, we have queues in our fueling station for even the fueling stations that are open, and not all are open. And we could see the reaction or the effect of the statement yesterday that was made by new president. Do you see this as a good move, or how do you what's your take on the move or the statement? Because actually some have been saying that these actions from depot owners and marketers, oil marketers, are too soon enough, because the fuel subsidy was meant to commence, removal was meant to commence June, and now we're already having fuel scarcity. What's your take on this?
I think I mentioned that earlier. It is not a wise decision. It's a new government. It's a new government. You are supposed to come into office, settle down a deal, carry people along, prepare people for the effect of whatever policy you want to implement. We all know that this subsidy thing, it just has been enriching some private pockets. So if a government is saying he wants to remove it, I think it's fair enough. If you want to make another sacrifice by removing the subsidy, fair enough. But what I'm saying is there should be preparation. There's a place for preparation in whatever we are doing in life. With a new government, we need to carry people along. Immediately, in fact, it was yesterday morning, the marketers that shut the gates of the filling stations and all that. Because nobody told them anything. They were not carried along. There were no consultation and all that. So you don't expect people to embrace that kind of policy. Why just take them for granted? You don't take people for granted. In a reasonable time, in a time where people have not been shut down by poverty, by now people will be on the street protesting, peaceful protest. Just to show that they are not happy with what. But we're in Nigeria, anything goes, anything happens, nobody can say anything. So my own take on that is that fine, subsidy can be removed or should be removed, no problem. But there must be consultation. When Jonathan wanted to remove subsidy in 2012, he made consultations, he made enough consultations. These same people that have removed the subsidy now without carrying people along, were the same people that stopped or prevented Jonathan from removing it then. If Jonathan had removed subsidy that time, by now we won't be having this issue. The same people. So that is to tell you how sincere people are. You know, people are not, they are not just sincere. People want to do things that benefit them. You know, they've been benefiting from something, from subsidy for how many years now, but now they want to remove it without carrying people along. You know, because subsidy will have crushing effect on the people. But where do we go from here now? Because now there's no way even prices of commodities will shut up. It will shoot up naturally. There's no way. We are in Nigeria, we know the way things happen. You know, there is no way marketers or traders will increase prices and they will now say they want to bring that. And as it is now, what I heard, and this morning, what I heard was that it is not unlikely that we'll be buying a liter of fuel for maybe around 6 or 7 naira. I don't know how realistic is that. But I don't think, I think it should be in that region. You know. So, but if Dangote refinery become active anytime soon, and maybe if you are getting direct crew from there into the system here, maybe that will push it with, maybe that will reduce the prices. But how many places can Dangote refinery service every part of Nigeria? The answer is no. You know, so it's still the same issue that we're talking about there. It's a good policy, but the approach is bad.
All right. Thank you for that. Of course, this is still Periscope on Al-IyamoyeTv and the radio, and we are talking about the new era, the new administration, of course, that was inaugurated yesterday, May 29, 2023. And I still have over the phone Mr. Femi Adepoju, social commentator and, of course, political pundit. All right. I saw a statement credited to former President Goodluck Jonathan while during an interview on Monday, and he mentioned something about the electoral process and all of that. According to him, he said despite the transition of the electoral process from manual to electronic, there were still problems, and he warned that the Independent National Electoral Commission must sit up, or else the commission would throw Nigeria into conflagration someday. And when asked how Nigeria could come out of electoral controversy through reforms, he said, and I will quote him saying that the problem we have is INEC and security. And I used to give an example: if two soccer teams are playing and the referee decides to look the other way, they will injure themselves, and on and on. Talking about the electoral process and all of that. What caught my attention was the fact that he said the Electoral Commission must sit up, or else the commission will throw Nigeria into conflagration someday. And I will relate that with the reactions of some Nigerians, so to say, concerning the just concluded election. Not everyone was definitely the election didn't go well, so to say. Not to even talk of the petition still in court over the outcome of the elections, the general election that happened in 2023. What's your take on this statement credited to the former president?
You see, let me quickly mention here that the problem we have in Nigeria basically is not too much about the system. It's about the people. It's a human problem. The electoral law specifies that we should use electronic system of voting and all that. But when you voted, after voting, and you are supposed to upload results at the polling center, and you now refuse to do that. You chose to upload the assembly results and fail and refuse to do that of the presidential election. So whose problem is that? The problem of the system or the problem of the handler? So that's exactly what Jonathan is saying.
Human factor.
It's about the people implementing this. Like the example of the referee that he made. The referee knows what he's supposed to do. The referee has the manual of officiating. He knows the rules and all that. But he can decide to look away, even when you are kicking, when you are hitting your fellow footballer on the ground. You can decide to look away. That is exactly what is happening here. So it's not about the system per se. It's about the operators. We have corrupt, bad people in this country. INEC is an example of corruption. We know what happened. There are stories everywhere. We see the way, even when they say people should go to court, we see the way they are trying to even dodge the court things. It's so unfortunate. Jonathan meant well for Nigeria. I think I can say that because he took steps, visible steps that we could see that this man actually meant well. But there are a lot of people in this country that know that if the system is okay and implemented well, there won't be anything for them. They are the people that Yoruba say, Ari Geni Mondaru. Those sort of people, they will not allow anything to work. They are the set of people that we call INEC today. With this set of INEC leadership and all that, Nigeria cannot witness any electoral, any successful election. We can't hold any successful election. With this set of people, it is not possible. The stories are everywhere now. We saw what happened during the election. So Jonathan is justified. What Jonathan is there. He's talking. He spoke from experience. He heard things. He saw things, and I think what he said, we are witnesses to everything that is said, and until something visible is done to correct the corruption in this country. But unfortunately, too, I don't see the present government combating corruption frontally because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I will want to influence your submission a bit, being optimistic. Let's just look at the brighter side of things, okay? And of course you have given your thought and your submission, but let's talk about how the narratives can be changed. Yes, like we'll say that it is when you have expectations, then you will have disappointment. But at the same time, this is a country, Nigeria, of over 200 million, citizens, which a better, good governance will aid, citizen living in peace and harmony, in unity, so to say. It has been proven that managing victory is even more complex than securing it. With electoral victory comes the laborious act of managing the expectations of multiple stakeholders, managing claims or counterclaims of people who participated in securing the win, managing politicians and the party, and even managing the hopes and aspirations of Nigerians. But as it stands, all right, let's just look at the side. How do you think the new administration can, what areas should they look into, and how can they change the narrative? Yes, okay. Even at the inception of the former administration, there were emphasis on tackling corruption, economic stability, and I think that was infrastructure, economic stability, corruption, and one other thing that which I would remember later. But we saw the way it was handled or managed, so to say, for 8 years. How do you think this administration can change that, even in the face of hopelessness or face of I don't see things can happen or change can come?
Let me put it this way. Okay. The only thing that can make this government achieve anything meaningful is if it succeeds in uniting the country, people of the country. Without unity, you can't achieve anything. As we speak, the country is sharply divided. People are divided against themselves. You know, if you talk to an Igbo person, for instance, and you talk about Nigeria, he will tell you which Nigeria are you talking about. You know, so and for as long as some people are not accommodated in the system of bola. If you talk to a Christian now, a Nigerian Christian, for instance, they will tell you, I don't have a stake in this system. You know, because during the election, he was shut out. Meanwhile, it's supposed to be a secular country, for crying out loud. You know, but here we are, when some people told us that religion does not matter. Religion does not matter. Yes, when we make money on VAT in the south here, it is the north that benefits more, that get the better share. Yet the north does not handle alcohol. They don't drink alcohol. They don't sell alcohol. They don't have anything to do with alcohol. You know, for religious reasons. But the south that drink alcohol, because they are tolerant, it is the north that are benefiting more from the VAT being generated from the sale of alcohol in the southwest. But the north that will not touch alcohol for religious reasons, they are saying that religion does not matter. So we continue to deceive ourselves. So that's why I said, you know, the first thing to do is to unite the country. And there's no way you unite the country if you don't uphold truth and justice. That is the first step. Anything short of that, forget it, we are just deceiving ourselves. That is the truth. Because there must be trust. People, there must be steps you take, and people will believe that, oh, this person is sincere. Even when they are going to offer sacrifices that will really press them down, they will be happy offering that sacrifice. You know, but there must be steps you are taking that will give them, you know, that belief that you are sincere. You can't tell me that religion does not matter and you have two Muslims as president and vice president, and religion does not matter. I want you to believe you. It doesn't work like that. You can't be telling me that we are in the same country and the Igbos are treated the way they are being treated, you know, as second-class citizens, and you tell me that you want to make forge ahead. It's not possible now. You know, all wounds must be healed. All nerves must be shaken. There must be a way for the government, you know, to accommodate all interests. People must have that sense of belonging. If the Eastern people are accommodated, you won't hear anything about Biafra again now. You know. Now, somebody was postulating the other time that the reason they put 25%, that anyone that wants to become president of Nigeria must have 25% in FCT, is because they knew that it was not possible for an Igbo person to have 25% in Abuja. You know, whether that is true or wrong, I wouldn't know. But you see, somehow, some things happen and you want to believe this statement. So, the government must find a way, you know, to make every Nigerian believe in this system. Without that, you won't get anything. You won't make anything out of the
All right. Because of our time, I just have two more questions to ask, and quickly, the first one: do you share the same sentiments that are because you know, there are different analyses that or different submission that Nigeria is great on paper. Nigeria has fantastic policies and you know, rules, but the implementation is the problem. And of course, we're talking about restructuring, review of our constitution. Are you of the same, you know, sentiment that we review our constitution, restructuring should be at the end of the day before any administration can say they've had an effective governance. Just quickly.
Yes, I said that earlier. The present system the present system allows for crookedness. It allows for corruption to thrive. And the people implementing the constitution, they don't even have that credibility. Zero integrity. It is on record that corruption in Nigeria today is far, 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 far higher than the way it was when Jonathan was in government. And that Jonathan government was kicked out because of corruption. But 8 years after, it is even worse. And the people that are taking over, they are still part of the system. So what do you expect? So if in another 4 years they are telling you that corruption is still on the increase, I don't think that should make anybody marvel, because the foundation is there already. So I believe that the system should change, the constitution should be worked on, and apart from that, the operators too must change. If the system changes and the operators are still the same, they will find a way to circumvent those instructions and still take us back, to the old road.
So, all right.
Yeah.
All right. In the light of that, let me quickly just ask this. From the new president, Bola Tinubu's statement, he mentioned that the public sector will be reformed. And he talked about the judiciary, structural review, the congestion of digitalization of trial, courts, and most especially regularization of various government biometric database, namely the MPC, the INEC, the BVN, the NIN, and the likes. Contrary to your earlier submission, is this not a call for celebration if truly that can be achieved?
But let me quickly ask you a question. All these things that he said, were they not part of the things Buhari said when he came to office? Is it not 8 years after? Is it not the same party? By the time he formed his government, it's still the same. You still see part of many people who are part of the expired government. You still see them, in the new government. So as far as I'm concerned, like I said,
okay,
we just talk. Talk is cheap. Let us see results. If he achieve those things, when we begin to see those changes, then we'll begin to praise him. But as far as I'm concerned for now, we're still at the level of talk. And like I said, talk is cheap. Everybody can say anything.
Okay, definitely the words will change when these talks are being achieved or actions are being taken. What has been said. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Just a few words for the citizen, because we've been talking about the government, and the politicians and all of that. What words do you have for the citizen in ensuring an effective governance for the next 4 years?
Well, see, it is difficult to advise, a set of people that are serious, that are seriously discouraged, that have lost hope. Like Yoruba will say, people are disillusioned, people have lost hope, people that have lost interest, in the country. That is why you see people trying to run out of the country every day. But I'll just say this: whatever happens, people should not relent in believing in the power of God. Because with God, everything is possible. We were in this country when Abacha was living and all that, but somehow God saw us through. We survived Buhari's 8 years. As harsh as the weather was, we survived it. So I just want to advise everybody, to expect less. But if result comes, we should not fail to appraise the government. We should not fail to praise the government for whatever it is that they are going to do better. But expectations should not be, because It's when you have too much expectation and those expectations are not met. That is why you see people resulting into riots and all that and all that. But just moderate your expectation and give the government the chance to be whatever it is they have promised to do. So when they are implementing, when they are putting actions to whatever promise they made, then we should not hesitate to praise them and let them know that, okay, you guys are doing a great job. But if they fail to walk the talk,
All right.
we should not take laws into our hands. Let's just remain calm and hope for the best. That is just my little advice. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for
Thank you for having me.
increasing this frequency. Thank you so much. Really
All right.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Once again, that will be the size of a package on Periscope this morning on Al-IyamoyeTv and the radio. And of course, while he was talking about, survival, I remember the comedian saying that the fact that we are able to survive for 8 years, we will survive anything. Well, let's just hope, and of course, we'll be open for a better Nigeria, keeping our hopes alive. And of course, in the next few years, we will be having analysis together with all optimism. My name is MODUPE AKINYOSOYE. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, follow us on all our social media platforms at Al-IyamoyeTv and radio. Thank you so much once again. Have a fantastic day. Good morning.